Look, I know the supernatural is something that isn't supposed to happen, but it does happen.
AM 1420, WBSM presents Spooky South Coast with your hosts, Tim Weisberg and Matt Costa.
We interrupt this program to bring you a special bulletin from ABC Radio. Here is a special bulletin from Dallas, Texas. 3 shots were fired at President Kennedy's motorcade today in downtown Dallas, Texas. This is ABC Radio.
There were 3 loud, reverberating explosions. Nobody moved. Everyone seemed stunned. A few seemed to look around, wondering who has the firecrackers. And then suddenly the Secret Service men sprang into action. The convertible bearing the President and Mrs. Kennedy sped away, and officers, both plainclothes and uniformed, seemed to spring from everywhere at once, guns drawn, ordering people to lie flat. There are 2 witnesses who were near the President's car at the time of the explosions, who say that shots were fired from which upper window we do not know.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, is dead. The President is dead. Let us pray.
Hello and welcome, Spooky South Coast. I am Tim Weisberg.
At least for tonight.
Yep. I have a cold, as you can tell. Now this is Matt Costa. We're starting Spooky South Coast, as we do every Saturday night at 10 whatever o'clock. And we're talking JFK Assassination.
And I need you to open things up because I got to see my voice as much as I can.
You do. It's kind of it hasn't happened in a while.
It's been years.
Yeah.
I think the last time this happened was the
vitamin C.
The Heidi Hollis show.
Oh yeah, the infamous Heidi Hollis show.
Man, I don't know if I'm going to make it 2 hours.
That's what you said that night too, and you made it.
I barely made it, and I'm barely going to make it tonight, but I'm going to try and do the best I can.
Right.
So is Spooky TV up and running?
Spooky TV is up and running, recording, and hopefully there's no audio issues.
Right. And of course, you can also just listen to us on WBSM.
I'm going to be popping in the chat room here and there, so if anybody does have any problems, they can type in all capital letters.
And get your attention.
Yeah.
Don't yell at me.
Because that's how you do it.
But we are going to be talking about the JFK assassination. We'd like to take everybody's calls. 508-996-0500, 877-996-1420. You can also tweet us at SpookySC. I now have a WBSM email address too.
Dude, wow, la-di-da.
I know, huh? Tim at WBSM.com.
Big time stuff.
I am, but of course, during the show, Tim at SpookySouthCoast.com or SpookyCrew at SpookySouthCoast.com. And later on in the show, we'll be joined by Robert Morningstar. I'm not even going to make it for the first 10 minutes. Robert Morningstar, who is a researcher of JFK and assassination theory, as well as a UFO researcher as well. So he'll join us later on in the show in the second hour to talk about some of the more fringe theories. And he's got some pretty big stuff that he wants to reveal.
Yes.
And he's looking for a trusted news source to help reveal it. So we might be partnering up with him as well as WBSM News if the news department is on board with releasing this information. So
now I know there was it's been 50 years since the assassination, correct?
Yeah.
So it's
yesterday.
I mean, did did I read that they recently like released some more information that there were some different interviews and things like that?
There's been.
I know there's a slew of books that have been released, but I mean that's just because it's the 50th anniversary.
Right, and there's been new video, and that's what a lot of people have been jumping on. Is there's long been a theory that one of the Secret Service agents that was behind the car was actually the one that fired the fatal shot.
Oh, I heard that.
Accidentally.
Had the rifle underneath his jacket, or
Right.
he was carrying some sort of rifle that nobody saw, or whatever.
So now there's apparently new footage for that.
Yeah. I also, I mean, I read a few articles today, one of which being was testimony that there was only 3 shots and there was no fourth shot fired by someone. And then an interesting thing that I didn't know beforehand was that Jackie Kennedy chose to wear that dress, that bloodstained dress, and all day. I guess to, I don't know, to give a message to whoever did this, I suppose. But I always thought that they kind of like rushed her to be like a witness and identify the body and not give her a chance to change. But I guess it was her choice. Her choice not to change.
And another interesting thing that I found out too is it was her choice to ride with the president in the back of the hearse.
Oh, really?
Which drove the Secret Service crazy because they couldn't ride back there with her to protect her. So, and she insisted on staying with the body all the way back to Washington.
Really?
Yeah. So.
There was some other things with Marilyn Monroe that I was reading also. I don't know. There was some, I guess Jackie and Marilyn Monroe met the day before
Really?
the assassination happened. Yeah.
Like one of those stay away from my husband type meetings?
I think so. I think it was one of those type of meetings.
Nice.
And I also read that not Marilyn and the president, but the first the president, that guy, had relations on Air Force One the day before.
Really?
Which I don't know why that was a big deal, because they're married, so whatever.
Because he was cheating on Marilyn Monroe
I guess so.
with his own wife. Not that we should be making light of
of course not.
a very somber anniversary, but we would like your calls, your thoughts, your memories. What did you think of JFK as a man, as a president? What are your thoughts on the assassination? We've done numerous episodes on the assassination over the years, and it seems like most of our audience agrees that there was something going on. Matt, what are your thoughts?
I definitely think there was something going on. I don't know if it's at the level of the government level, but there's definitely a conspiracy. I definitely think there's more than one person involved.
We actually have a news clip here that I'll play.
50 years after the assassination of John F. Kennedy, 62% of Americans in this poll continue to believe his killing was not the act of one man, but part of a broader plot. And as many think the government's covered it up to keep people from knowing the truth. Still, half of those who suspect a plot also say it's only their hunch, and the numbers who see a conspiracy or cover-up are well down from their peak 20 or 30 years ago.
Really?
Yeah, so there you have it. I mean, that kind of shows that's pretty indicative of our audience as well.
Yeah.
Seems to be the case. And I talked about this on Phil Paleologos' show when I was filling in last week. And I put the challenge out there for anybody to call in and defend the lone gunman theory. And in 3 hours, I only got one call. And that person's only argument was that there was no proof of a conspiracy.
Yeah.
My counterpoint was there's no real proof that Oswald acted alone.
That's true.
Aside from the Warren Commission, which, as we know, is full of holes, no pun intended. And our guest, Robert Morningstar, will help us pick that apart later on. And there it goes. It's pretty much gone at this point.
Just don't say his last name.
That's right. Start to lose it. But 508-996-0500, 877-996-1420. Those are the numbers if you would like to call in and share your thoughts. We also do want to let people know, before we get too heavy into the JFK talk, that on December 13th, Friday the 13th.
Yes, Oddfest.
We're going to be having Oddfest, right?
Oddfest.
At Knuckleheads in New Bedford.
Yep, Knuckleheads, New Bedford. I think admission is you just bring an unwrapped toy, right?
Going for Toys for Tots.
I'm not sure what the time is.
I think it's
Suppose I should know
7:30.
that.
7:30 to whenever.
Whenever. That's an open-ended party.
Till whenever Stoney
So,
kicks us out.
Yep.
And you know it's going to take a while for Stoney to kick us out.
True.
Because we're a good crowd.
We could stay so long that people would have to go out to the store, get another unwrapped gift, and come back.
That's the
They'll
idea.
go.
The more toys, the better.
Yep, exactly.
And Stoney's going to bring some of his oddities.
Oh, that's awesome.
From his sideshow
I've always
collection.
wanted to see his stuff.
And he's going to bring them down, and we're going to have a whole downstairs to ourselves.
Nice.
And we'll just have fun.
Be like the first anniversary party.
Right?
Almost.
Yeah. It'll be that combined with last year's Oddfest, which was pretty cool. All right, I think we have a call on the line, so let's go to it. Good evening. You're on Spooky South Coast. How are you?
Has Tim been possessed tonight?
Oh, please. that would at least be an easy. At least I could get rid of the demon easier than I could this sore throat.
Boy. Well, my thoughts on the JFK assassination. As you know, I'm a pretty big Sinatra fan, and the events that led to Kennedy's election, Sinatra was heavily involved. In fact, there are theories out there that he had his friends in the mafia, specifically Sam Giancana and other cohorts, rigged some elections in Ohio, heavily populated Catholic areas, where they would, for lack of a better word, encourage people to go out and vote. Now, all of this was done because Bobby Kennedy was set up to be the Attorney General, and they thought with the Kennedys kind of on their side, but still in the closet about being on their side, they would have more room to operate, and you know, the hand from the White House wouldn't be so hard on organized crime. Well, that wasn't the case. Bobby Kennedy actually made a concerted effort to wipe out the mafia or do the best he could to get rid of organized crime in the nation. Now, after a few years of top leaders being arrested and put away for a number of years, I think the mafia got a little frustrated, and I'm not sure where the connection with Oswald comes in then, but maybe they got a hold of him. I don't. That's where I get a little fuzzy. But certainly, Jack Ruby had his connections, and I think that raised a lot of suspicions when Jack Ruby killed Oswald. That definitely told people that something more than meets the eye was going on. And I think the LBJ theories, they have their credence too, but I want to know what you guys think about the mafia theories.
Well, I think the missing... Matt, I don't know what you were going to say there.
Oh, I feel like the mafia theory, I feel like it's a little too public to be like a mafia thing. I think if they were going to take out Kennedy, he would be not found ever or something.
Maybe they'll make him Jimmy Hoffa
like a
disappear.
Jimmy Hoffa type of thing.
Well, I think
they find him in a cornfield somewhere.
The bridge there, Taylor, between the mafia and Oswald, I would think would be the CIA.
The CIA?
Because at the time, the CIA was heavily entrenched in what was going on with the mafia, because the mafia were operating against Castro in Cuba.
Uh-huh.
So they already had that built-in rivalry. I think the CIA was kind of siding with the mafia, hoping that, you know, maybe Giancana, one of his ilk, would be the ones to take out Castro so they wouldn't have to. Because the mafia lost a lot of revenue when basically all the Americans had to pull out of Havana. I mean, that was a lot of revenue for them that was lost.
I would imagine, yeah. That's interesting.
Just one theory.
I don't. Yeah, there's no other venue though that they would have been able to get at. You take them out in a cornfield. I mean, yeah, that's typical for something mafia related. But
yeah, that's how they're going to get.
How are you going to get the president by himself?
Yeah, I think that's what it would have to be. It would have to be public. It would have to be somebody that could be the patsy, which, you know, Oswald claimed to be.
Yeah. Yep. Well, thank you very much, guys. I'll keep on listening. You have a spooky night.
Thanks, you too.
All right.
He's like, yeah, I can't listen anymore, Tim's voice. I'm just going to go. That's the thing, is like whenever anybody else, you know, here at the station has a sore throat, like they just call me and I'll come in and fill in.
Yeah.
But who's going to fill in for me?
I don't know.
That's why I turned to you.
Yeah, I guess so.
But, I mean, out of all the theories that are out there, though, what one do you most subscribe to? I mean, do you think it was Do you think it was an inside job? Do you think it was within the government itself? Was LBJ involved in it? Was it CIA? Was it?
I do. I think it's I feel like it is this somehow involved with the CIA, because I mean there is some definite links between Oswald and the CIA. I mean him going to Russia and everything, and I don't know. It just seems a little too convenient.
I just keep going back to that. The fact that at that time, nobody with the type of knowledge that Oswald had from his time in the Marines would have been allowed to go to Russia, let alone go to Russia, stay there, have known contact with the KGB, marry Marina, who was tied into the KGB family, come back to the United States. Like, really, okay, fine. Even if they let him go, they never would have let him come back, especially knowing that he'd been in contact with the KGB.
So are we saying that he is the lone gunman, or he was acting as a sole shooter? Not by himself. Like he was the only one shooting at the time.
I think they were building a lone nut.
Yeah.
Whether or not that the assassination was a deviation of whatever plan they had for him, maybe he was just so sick of being the patsy, being whatever they were building him to be, that he reacted in the only way he could. He took out the top guy.
Right.
So maybe there's that possibility. But somebody had their hands on Oswald early on.
Right. I mean, how would he know to go to that book depository? How did he know, was that a public knowledge that...
well, he worked there. He'd been working there for a while.
But I'm saying, that the motorcade path was released before.
They used to publish it in the newspaper. They would give the entire route, minute by minute, of where you would be able to get the best view. And after that, they stopped doing that.
Yeah, I can see why.
Yeah, it was probably not such a good idea.
So he's like, where's the best view?
Well, it just so happened that he worked in the building.
Right.
He was able to get into the building with a rifle, wrapped up, claiming to be curtain rods. There was way too much, not enough eyebrows were raised that day.
It seems like everything went kind of a little too according to plan on his end.
I think things worked out way too easily for him. And which is interesting because when we talk to Robert Morningstar later, I want to find out, because he wrote extensively in the past about J.D. Tippit, which I don't know if you're familiar with J.D. Tippit.
No.
When Oswald ran from the Texas Book Depository, he encountered on some of the back roads of Dallas police officer J.D. Tippit.
Yep.
Which there had already been an APB put out for somebody matching Oswald's description. Tippit tries to intercept Oswald. Oswald shoots him in the face and kills him.
Really?
And then he escapes and runs to the theater, which is where he's captured by the police later. And he's apprehended as a suspect in the murder of Tippit, not for JFK at the time. So Robert Morningstar has written extensively about the similarities between Kennedy and Tippit, and he feels like Tippit was killed as part of the eventual cover-up of this whole thing. So we'll find out more about that in the next hour, but to me, I don't really see the similarities, but we'll have Robert describe it better.
Right. There's so many different, variables and things that came up to have it not be some sort of conspiracy or something going on that we don't know about. Definitely. I mean, it just kind of raised my attention. The three tramps.
Right. One of which was...
Who was it related to?
Woody Harrelson.
Woody Harrelson, that's right.
One of which was his father, who was a known... not suspected of being a spy.
Right.
But definitely a future felon. He was a convicted felon later on. One of the other ones was St. John Hunt's father,
right.
E. Howard Hunt. And we had St. John on a few years ago to tell us about his father's deathbed confessional about being involved. And they're called the Three Tramps.
Yep.
But they don't look anything like tramps. Way too well dressed to be hobos from the train yard.
Right. Yeah, I'm looking at pictures of them right now.
A little bit impeccably dressed for hobos.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really dress for it. I don't dress this nice.
Right. We dress like hobos anyway.
Exactly.
But one of the more interesting aspects of that is you've got three guys who are suspected of being CIA assassins within a mile of the assassination. And it's something that people just gloss over.
Yeah, they just brush it off.
Anyway,
So, yes.
I'm going to keep putting down and coughing throughout the course of the night. I do what I got to do. Do what I have to get by. But, I mean, if it was any other topic except this, I probably would have, called in. Probably would have.
It's the anniversary.
Right.
So
It's the 50th anniversary. We have
kind
to.
of a big deal. Hey, that camera works now.
Nice. How
Hey.
you doing, everybody? Which is good because now everybody can't see me.
Yeah, I was
Here on the other camera.
I was trying to avoid that.
You're like, fade to black. So,
You keep going back.
when we're talking about the idea of Oswald becoming this, I don't want to keep using the term patsy, but to keep being this figure that they're building towards something, then if you follow his path when he comes back from Russia, he's not exactly the most stable individual. He wasn't really stable before. He was getting Pravda, the communist newspaper, delivered to him on the Marine base.
Right.
Red flag, like, and that goes.
But was all that kind of a setup?
Was it, or was he that crazy that he felt he could get away with getting it? It plays both ways, and that's why it's such a perfect, perfect patsy, because you can't be sure. He tried to kill a judge.
Yep.
He tried to kill a general. These are. Well, at least he's reportedly was in discussions for this.
Yeah. These are all U.S. reports, right? From. Are these
From our intelligence?
Is there a chance that these could be like made-up reports?
No. This is stuff that's been pretty much. There was record of him getting the communist newspaper. It was noted.
Right.
But at that time, in the late 1950s, you should have been blacklisted if that was the case.
Right, and they kind of let that happen. They kind of. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, they kind of didn't.
Brushed it over, I guess.
Yeah, they let it slide, you could say.
For what reason?
Exactly.
Dun dun dun.
It's just, and like I said, that's why it works out perfectly.
Yeah,
because there are so many questions.
I think that's why everybody kind of, when they think of conspiracy theory, they kind of think of the JFK assassination as one of the top, I guess, probably, I'd say that's probably the number one, at least as far as America goes, conspiracy theories.
And if it was somehow, some way, just one crazy guy acting by himself, the fact that there are so many questions surrounding it just proves how much they botched this from the beginning.
Right.
That they could have had Oswald on their radar very early on.
Right.
That was terrible. I think I'm going to take a break.
All right.
When we come back on the other side, we'll talk more about this. We'll take your calls as well. Matt, give up the numbers.
It's 508-996-0500 and toll free. Is it 1877? I should know this.
Yep. You can say 877.
996-1420.
And we'll be back in just a moment.
Yep. After this.
Not Providence, not Boston. Your station for the South Coast. AM 1420 WBSM.
Bad credit card debt happens to good people. Credit card companies lure you in with low introductory rates or low minimum payments. Before you know it, you owe thousands of dollars in credit card debt. It has happened to millions of good people just like you. But here's the good news. Thanks to a powerful program now approved, anyone with $2,000 or more in credit card debt can cut their credit card payments up to half and even reduce or eliminate interest charges altogether. That's right. Our nationwide nonprofit program is helping U.S. residents cut their credit card payments. Call 800-837-6089 now. Call and information are free. Credit Guard has helped over 500,000 people with their credit card debt, and now we can help you. Call 800-837-6089 to see how this powerful nonprofit program can work for you. Bad credit card debt happens to good people. Get free of credit card debt today. Call 800-837-6089. That's 800-837-6089. Again, 800-837-6089. online.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 877-413-9050 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 877-413-9050 to take your call now. Call 877-413-9050. That's 877-413-9050. Again, 877-413-9050.
Liberals who talk so awful about our country mean it? I mean, because you're right. If they don't like it, wouldn't you think? I mean, some of them have left. You know, guys like Johnny Depp, they moved out. I think he...
Welcome back to Spooky South Coast. I'm Matt Costa, and with me is Tim Weisberg. That's weird.
What's left of Tim Weisberg anyway?
We're joined by the cigarette-smoking man. Hi, boys. Sorry.
I think somebody out there is going to accuse me of doing a bad Sylvia Brown impression tonight.
Oh, that's terrible. Too soon.
Is it too soon? It is.
I don't know.
But, yeah, we were talking about the JFK assassination.
That was sad, though.
And that was Abraham, Martin, and John, which is by Dion. Not a lot of people realize that that song is performed by Dion and the Belmonts. Yeah. Dion DiMucci, the guy who sang The Wanderer and Run Around Sue. And then he had a religious conversion and started doing more conscientious music.
Yep.
And he recorded that song. And I didn't know till just a few minutes ago when I told you it was actually written by the guy who wrote Snoopy versus the Red Baron for the Royal Guardsmen.
Which is an excellent song. Dude.
It's an excellent song in terms of its camp value, but in terms of its lyrical content, it's no Abraham, Martin, and John.
No.
508-996-0500, 877-996-1420. Those are the numbers to call in and chime in. You can also send us a tweet, SpookySC, or at WBSM1420. Email us, spookycrew@spookysouthcoast.com. We are discussing the Kennedy assassination and some of the conspiracy theories coming up in the next hour. We'll be joined by Robert Morningstar, who will share with us some of his research. He was on the Big Overnight Show last night.
The Big Overnight Show?
You know the big one.
Yep.
One that we don't air on the station. Yep. And so I was surprised when I reached out to him today and I was able to get a hold of him. And he agreed to join us. So we're very honored for that. He's got some information that you might not hear anywhere else, and we'll have that for you coming up in the next hour. When we're talking about the assassination too, we have to note that JFK didn't want the bubble on the car, the plexiglass bubble.
Oh, really?
That was his choice.
Oh, I didn't think it was invented then.
No, Eisenhower used it.
Yeah. Okay.
So they did have it.
Okay.
But Kennedy refused to use it. He wanted to have the car open air so that he could wave and interact with the people. It was a nice day.
Yeah. Well, he was kind of like a people's president. So.
Right. So it was actually his choice not to, as far as we know, as far as we're told the official version is, it was his choice. So if that's the case, then that was a very fortuitous circumstance if there was a conspiracy in place to assassinate him that day.
Right. Yeah, because, I mean, what if he chose to be in the bubble? Then Oswald's plan would have been
I mean, could they have got him otherwise? Probably.
Yeah.
is it a coincidence that it happened in Texas, the home state of LBJ? A lot of people like to look at Johnson and think that he's involved because in hindsight we can look back and say, well,
I mean, was that in the newspaper as well?
What's that?
That he was not going to use the bubble?
I'm not sure about that.
Because that would be kind of a key piece of information that
people on the inside would have known, though.
Right.
People within Secret Service, FBI, CIA.
See? It's pretty easy to come up with a conspiracy.
That's what happens. You know that. I come up with conspiracy theories about everything. I'm pretty sure my losing my voice was, the government's way of silencing me from telling the truth to me.
Yep.
Sorry, I don't mean to go all Moniz on you there for a minute. And also, we should take a moment to express our well wishes to Moniz's family.
Oh yeah, definitely.
They had an incident happen. Those of you who follow his family on Facebook, you know what I'm talking about. But I don't want to speak out of school here on it. But they had some damage to their home, so we hope that everything goes well for them. Better than from my voice, apparently.
Baron von Greenback.
Danger Mouse. But we're cracking way too many jokes from JFK.
This is serious.
That's what we have to do to get through this.
It's been 50 years.
The idea of Johnson being involved, people like to look back and say, well, they had a good relationship, they worked well together, but in actuality, they started off as enemies.
Yes.
They started off as rivals for the Democratic nomination.
Yep.
And back then, it was it was commonplace for your rival to become your running mate, and it was especially key for Kennedy because they didn't think that a Roman Catholic, Eastern Northern guy could carry the South, and they needed those Southern Democrats. So they felt like they had to get him on the ticket, and they had to get his support. So they were able to reach a compromise and get him on the ticket.
Yep.
Is it possible that Johnson didn't want to settle for being second in banana? Is it possible that Johnson was tied into the military-industrial complex? The military-industrial complex that would benefit from war in Vietnam that Kennedy was trying to avoid?
Yeah, it's possible.
And I just go back to the situation where, I've said this before, Jackie had to serve as witness to the swearing in of LBJ, wearing that dress covered in her husband's blood and brains, standing on Air Force One, while LBJ was sworn in as president.
Mm-hmm.
Why? For what reason?
Right.
There were plenty of other people there that could serve as witness.
Yeah, it didn't have to be
You
the
only
first
need
lady. I mean, is that standard practice? I mean,
I don't know if there was an SOP for this.
I mean, is the Secretary of State around? I mean, somebody could have done it.
Well, anybody on the plane, any of the Secret Service agents, the pilot, anybody. There was enough news media there. And I recently watched a special, and it's an older special, but I rewatched it, JFK: The Lost Tapes, where they play a lot of the audio from that day, the communications between the Secret Service in Dallas and Secret Service in Washington. And they actually allowed for the media to be present when Air Force One arrived in Washington.
Oh, yeah.
And they allowed them to shoot the casket coming out of the plane, being loaded into the hearse.
Mm-hmm.
They allowed regular coverage of that, which I thought was pretty very interesting.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they would allow that today.
I think they couldn't stop it today. I think back then it would have been easier to control.
Yeah.
But these days, all it would take is one reporter putting it up on Twitter and it would go viral.
It's true. I mean, do you think that's kind of plays into the fact of why we kind of hold this on kind of like a pedestal, or as far as John F. Kennedy is concerned, especially around here? I don't know.
But yeah,
he was beloved in New England.
The Kennedy family can do no wrong, especially here on the South Coast.
Right, exactly.
So you think that?
I mean, do you think it was partly because of all that coverage that we kind of got to, experience that?
I think my theory is that...
You know, it was almost like we were a part of the whole grieving process.
I think part of it was the way that the Kennedy administration viewed their role in the presidency, where they wanted to be this new Camelot. They wanted to be almost like the royal family of America.
Yep.
And so, therefore, you know, they felt like they were on display for the American people.
Yeah.
So they didn't really hide a lot. Now, of course, we weren't alive then.
No.
So we should preface this by saying that. But I think that was such a turning point. I think that's like the loss of America's innocence. Really.
Yeah.
Because before that, you have the happy-go-lucky 50s.
Yep.
More or less. And after that, you have the cynicism of the 60s. And that's the dividing line right there. And what you're seeing is that old mentality of we trust the government.
Yep.
We trust what we're being told. We trust the media to be giving us an unbiased account. You know, it was
kind of like a wake-up call. Like we're not living such a kind of like America was kind of living a sheltered life in the 50s.
Right.
And then it was kind of a slap in the face, being like...
And we were still viewing this event through that filter. Whereas if the same circumstances happened post-JFK, RFK, MLK, Watergate, if it had happened later on,
right,
we would have had a completely different view of it, a completely different outlook of it. And they would have had a completely different reaction. When you hear these tapes that they played on the special, they were talking about how there was no procedure to follow. There was no book written on this.
Yeah.
Because they'd never had it happen in such a fashion.
Right.
So they were kind of making it up as they went along. And I think that in today's world, that wouldn't have happened. They wouldn't have been allowed to make it up as they went along.
Right. So
I'm running out of here. I need some calls. I need some phone calls here. 508-996-0500, 877-996-1420. It's my own fault. It is.
You never should have filled in for Phil. Phil.
What was that?
That's what did it.
It's been building up over a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And I've been doing...
going around, too.
Well, I've been doing a lot of radio. I've been doing the Southcoast End Zone for the Standard Times.
Yep.
And I talk a lot. Anyway. And I've had this cough, and I just knew that sooner or later it was going to get to the point where it got strained.
Yeah.
So, it was a long time coming.
Just happens. Need some lemon drops.
I wouldn't.
Somebody suggested lemon drops in the chat room.
Did they?
They did.
Like little candy, like
I
cough
think so,
drops?
yeah.
I don't know if that would make a difference. I did the saltwater gargle.
Yep.
And I had chai, and I had regular black tea. And I'll get something else during the news break.
Honey's supposed to be good.
I don't know if there's any honey around here.
I don't know. Bee throw up. So.
When you put it that way.
There's that.
You put it that way, it's bound to be a cure. But hey, you know, I lost my voice. Right. I wouldn't take back any of the conversations that I've had leading up to this.
No.
So, there you go. And by the next time we come on the air next Saturday, or next Saturday morning for me, I should be fine.
Yeah, you'll be fine. Red as rain tomorrow morning.
I don't know about that. But I don't have anything coming up where I have to do a lot of talking.
Yep.
I just
right after the show, you're just going to be a complete mime.
Right. Well, that's good because usually you and I talk. We're here for a couple hours talking after the show.
Yep.
And I don't really need to talk with you. You know, I can kind of just like gesture and you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Like I can just do one of these like, ah. He's like, not even looking at me, you know? Like, yeah. Exactly. 508-996-0500, 877-996-1420. We'll take another break. When we come back, we'll take more of your calls if you want to call in. I'm surprised nobody's sharing. We did 3 hours of this a couple weeks ago. The phone lines were lit up the entire time. Maybe those people went to bed early.
Maybe.
We'll be back in a moment here on Spooky Southcoast.
Patriots, Broncos, Sunday night at 8:30 on AM 1420 WBSM.
Don't mind me. I'll just sit here quietly while you drive. Hey, so how many miles you got on this baby? Kind of a lot, huh? I'll be quiet. You know what doesn't have six-figure mileage on it? Every Honda certified used car. Yep, each is a well-maintained late model Honda. Each gets a grueling 150-point inspection, too. And I'll stop talking. Hey, this is where I get out anyway. So yeah, Honda certified used cars. Next best thing to new. Just saying.
You're in your car, and when you brake, the nose dives. A lot. And diving means longer stops. Longer stops mean bad news for little old ladies crossing the street. So you turn into AutoZone to get the shocks and struts you know you need to keep your car stopping on a dime. No little old lady hood ornament for you.
Right now, get an AutoZone gift card worth up to $125 when you buy 4 qualifying Gabriel shocks and struts. Restore your car's handling and get a gift card. Get in the zone. AutoZone. See store for restrictions and details.
Okay, here's a little brain exercise. See if you can remember these numbers. 1-800-916-8317. Do you ever meet someone and 5 minutes later forget their name? Do you lose your keys, forget birthdays, can't remember names and dates? Losing your memory can be embarrassing, stressful, and even dangerous. That's why we created Prevagen. Within days, you'll notice significant improvement in your attention, memory, and focus, and avoid the embarrassment of memory problems. Based on Nobel Prize-winning chemistry and clinically shown to improve your memory, Prevagen consists of a unique and safe protein only recently discovered. Researchers worldwide are touting the incredible memory-increasing properties of Prevagen, making it the #1 brain health support supplement in America. Don't let memory problems keep you from living the full life you deserve. Call 800-916-8317 today to try Prevagen absolutely risk-free. Prevagen is clinically shown to improve memory and support a healthier brain, sharper mind, and clearer thinking. So call now at 800-916-8317. That's 800-916-8317. Again, 800-916-8317.
A letter from her on October 21st, a speech at the White House Rose Garden. He read the letter from her, and she said, "My son has..."
Hello.
Hey man, you up?
No.
Wake up, I need to talk to you. I think your house is haunted.
Hey, come on, it's 2:30 in the morning.
I can't sleep in here, man. I'm scared.
Oh, welcome back to Spooky Southcoast.
Surprise.
I forgot what I was doing. I'm Matt Costa. With us is Tim Weisberg, and we're talking JFK Assassination on the 50th anniversary.
And we do have a phone call on the line if you'd like to call in. 508-996-0500, 877-996-1420. We'll be joined in the next hour by Robert Morningstar, a researcher into the JFK assassination.
And
I hit the wrong line. That's on me. Of course, I hit the lock button, too. Good evening. You're on Spooky South Coast. How are you?
Hey, Tim. Very well. So I want to take a different angle on this JFK thing.
Okay.
Now, the way I see it, you have a succession of authors from about 1964 right up to today who can't be trusted to tell the story, and who are interested in building a conspiracy, and they take different pieces of evidence and manipulate it and build a conspiracy case, and then it becomes sexy, it becomes popular, and people don't do the background, but you do the background on some of these people, like the Jim Garrison case and others, and they're not on the level. Mark Lane, Oliver Stone is a great example.
Well, Oliver Stone was just using the research of Jim Mars and others.
Yeah.
And putting together the JFK film.
Well, yeah, look at the JFK film. I mean, it doesn't accurately represent what happened in the Jim Garrison case.
Well, I mean, I think any time you have a Hollywood version of it, there's going to be some liberties taken.
It was also a film, so you have to keep that.
Would Oliver Stone admit that his film takes liberties? I don't think so. He seemed to think in '91, especially, well, he backs away from it now. He seemed to think it was groundbreaking, and he pushed for the declassification of apparently this magic body of records that the government was sitting on, and there were hundreds of thousands of documents released. So the answer to that then, when he didn't find the smoking gun, was, they're sitting on there's other documents, right?
Right, and that's the argument that's still made today, that there's
that's a misunderstanding of how government classifies documents, and shows Oliver Stone doesn't know about documentation and history. I mean, that's a whole field of history, freedom of information requests, and there's a whole group called the National Security Archive that look at these things, and there's no document that says, hey, Lucien Sarti of the Corsican Mafia killed JFK, and it's sitting somewhere in Washington. And these researchers know that. What they're saying is, Tom Hartman and others are saying, there's a whole body of documents that say, okay, contingency plans for an invasion of Cuba. And they're saying, hey, I want that released. And if it's not up for its 35-year renewal, they'll say, hey, they're holding on to the documents on the JFK assassination.
So all of these, all the pertinent or most direct JFK documents were released after the Stone movie, after that lobbying move, and guess what? It didn't change any of the theories for or against the conspiracy.
You know, and I can relate it to something that we talk about here on Spooky South Coast a lot, and that would be the Lizzie Borden case, because there's Lizzie's inquest testimony is locked up in her lawyer's office in Springfield.
Yeah.
And they won't release it because attorney-client privilege extends after death. And so
the Earl Warren Commission, I mean, they followed standard protocols that all the testimony and everything was there, but the actual FBI investigation work and some of the transcripts or whatever, that falls under a 35-year rule or a 50-year rule, and they were just following. They didn't, and that's the case with any government document. So right now we have all the documents on the 50s and the 60s, and 30 years from now, folks will have the documents on the government of today. So to paint that as a conspiracy is not the way to go, you know.
Well, but like you said, though, the conspiracy angle is sexier. It's more interesting.
Yeah,
and
I mean the Tibbet thing too. You can see, Doctor. There's a great website, the Texas History Portal, and the Tibbet killing was investigated by the Dallas police. He was a Dallas cop, obviously, and you can go on there and you can see handwritten statements from on about the 23rd or 24th of November, after Tibbet was killed, of the witnesses. Now you have about 12 witnesses to the Tibbet murder, whose testimony is right there, and you can read it. Today, go online this evening. But what happened is Mark Lane, a researcher, so-called, comes along in 1964 and finds somebody who wasn't interviewed by the police, who was blocks away from the Tibbet killing, and says, "Oh yeah, I'm Aquila Clemens, and I saw it. There was two guys there." So now every single conspiracy book since had Aquila Clemens front and center, with a totally bogus story, and the 12 who gave testimony to police who identified the shooter in a lineup on that 2 days after, with fresh memories, fresh eyes, fresh testimony, they're not mentioned. You don't get those guys in Mark Lane's book. So the real conspiracy is Mark Lane, Jim Garrison, Oliver Stone are making it all up.
Well, do you think that, though, is it easier for people to believe in the idea of a grand conspiracy than to believe that it was just, one crazy guy acting alone, getting away with it?
Yeah, it is. But look at the poor Gerald Ford. I mean, I guess you shouldn't say poor Gerald Ford, lucky Gerald Ford, but in the space of 2 weeks, two people took a shot at him, and they missed him by 6 inches. Right. But nobody says that Squeaky Fromm and Sarah Jane Moore were their name, Manson family members. Nobody says there was a grand plot there to take out Gerald Ford, because Gerald Ford isn't as sexy as JFK. We'd all agree with that, right?
Well, but with that, you have the the whole Manson angle, which I think kind of gives it some of that sexiness. As weird as it is to say sexy when we're talking about the Manson family, right, but at least it gives it that controversy. Matter, right? I'm sorry?
And Kennedy, for that matter, as well.
Right. I mean, I think that, if Oswald got to trial, and even if he just, was non-cooperative or whatever, but if he was convicted, people would have an easier sense of acceptance for him acting alone.
Yeah.
It's because we never got
look,
justice.
They tried to pull it with the Boston bombing too, right? Alex Jones and these guys, and we're from this region. We're highly offended by that. So maybe we should be offended by, a Massachusetts senator is killed by, what Jackie Kennedy called him, a little communist, and she put a word in front of that, and that's what he was, a little leftist punk who took a pot shot, and just like the punks that murdered innocent people in Boston,
Right. All right, well, thank you very much for the call. We are up against the news break.
All right, thank you, sir.
Have a good night. And if anybody else would like to call during the rest of the show, 508-996-0500, 877-996-1420. You can tweet us at SpookySC. Email us spookycrew@SpookySouthcoast.com. When we come back in the next hour, we'll be joined by Robert Morningstar, who will share with us some of his research and hopefully do a lot of the talking so that I don't have to. And he'll share with us some of his surprising findings, both in relation to the Zapruder film and in his research overall of the case. So stay tuned for all that coming up. And don't forget, mark your calendar, December 13th, Oddfest, Knuckleheads, New Bedford, downstairs. The only thing you got to bring to get in, an unwrapped toy for Toys for Tots. We're going to have a paranormal party all night long. It's your chance to come and get hammered with the Spooky Crew and Jeff Belanger. We'll be back in a minute here on WBSM.
Your station for the South Coast. AM 1420 WBSM. Local news, talk, and sports. The South Coast turns to AM 1420 WBSM New Bedford and WBSM.com.
Iran's nuclear program in return for lifting some of the crippling economic sanctions on Iran. The limitations in the agreement cut off Iran's likely path to a bomb, says President Obama. Susan Maloney, analyst with the Brookings Institution, telling our ABC News partner, the BBC, about the restrictions on Iran.
A whole set of constraints on their nuclear activities, everything from the level of enrichment to the production of centrifuges, to the installation of more highly advanced centrifuges.
Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Zarif in Geneva.
War is not only unnecessary, it's impractical, imprudent, and illegal. So if we have been able to prevent an illegal action, that's a major accomplishment, but it shouldn't be.
A tweet from Senator Lindsey Graham, South Carolina Republican. Unless the agreement requires dismantling of the Iranian centrifuges, we really haven't gained anything. A tweet from Senator John Cornyn, Texas Republican. Amazing what White House will do to distract attention from Obamacare. A big, dangerous storm system right now brings snow to northern Arizona, as much as 11 inches. Ice, freezing rain, all heading into New Mexico. Blamed for 8 deaths so far. Clay Anderson, meteorologist, National Weather Service in Albuquerque.
There are going to be some significant impacts to travel in New Mexico, and specifically along Interstate 25, which goes from south and north across New Mexico, and then Interstate 40.
Among the storm deaths, 3 people in the crash of 9 tractor-trailers and 2 passenger cars on a slippery roadway there on Interstate 40 in Amarillo, Texas. You're listening to ABC News.
Who said Black Friday was the only day you could save big? It's Lumber Liquidators' Yellow and Black Friday flooring sale. All Easy-Click floors are on sale, including laminates 20% off. Get up to $500 off any Bellawood pre-finished floor with a coupon. Plus, take 20% off power tools and save on other great gifts. And get special extended financing. Save big every day of the week at our Yellow and Black Friday flooring sale. Hurry, sale's going on now. Get to your local store or lumberliquidators.com before these deals get away.
Financing subject to credit approval. Minimum monthly payment required.
Happy Honda days are here. That means you could unwrap a great deal on a 2014 Accord. Not only is it from KBB.com's best value brand, but it's packed with standard features like hands-free calling. Think that sounds good? Feast your ears on this holiday power ballad from Michael Bolton. Everything's a little more special during Happy Honda days. See your Honda dealer today.
Based on 2013 brand image awards from Cali Playbook, visit KBB.com for more information.
Iraqi Sunni religious leaders say that they have closed their mosques in Baghdad today to protest attacks targeting clerics and worshippers. It's highlighting the country's deepening sectarian rift. The closures came as car bombs and suicide bombers across Iraq killed 12 people today. The mosques, the Sunni mosques, are scheduled to be reopened on Sunday. Thanksgiving and Black Friday fall very late this year, so a number of retailers are trying to get sales and revenues up early by offering pre-Black Friday sales all week long.
Many people think Black Friday advertised deals are only available in stores, so they camp out for hours. But Mark LaCastro of Deal News says that's not always the case.
Our data indicated that 70% of all Black Friday in-store deals will be available online.
And those doorbuster deals? He says, yeah, you can find those online too.
Many, if not all, doorbusters are available online at that same price or sometimes even cheaper.
The only difference, you have to wait for it to arrive. Alex Stone, ABC News.
Going back to North Korea and bringing fellow ex-NBA players for an exhibition game, Dennis Rodman.
Back when I was, doing my finagling in sports, they thought I was a joke. They thought I was a cartoon character, stuff like that. And all of a sudden now, people are taking me serious as more of a, it's a good, you could say somewhat ambassador now, stuff like that around the world.
This is ABC News.
Trying to sell your old car? Instead, donate your vehicle to Heritage for the Blind. Pickup is free and your donation is tax deductible. Just call 1-800-953-4036. Heritage for the Blind accepts cars, vans, trucks, and boats, whether they run or not. Call right now and receive a free 3-day vacation voucher to over 50 locations. Call 1-800-953-4036. Donate your car today. That's 1-800-953-4036.
Chuck Severson, ABC News.
Tuca, Luch, and the boys skate here. Bruins hockey on AM 1420 WBSM.
Flu season is here, and that's why it's more important than ever for you to take care of your health. The flu shot is the best protection against contracting the flu, according to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Now's the time to take a positive step to help reduce the chances of catching this season's flu by getting a flu shot. It's easy to do. The cost of a flu shot is often covered by your health plan, whether you buy your health insurance on your own or get it from your employer through Medicare or a state Medicaid program. Check with your health insurer and schedule an appointment today by calling your physician, visiting your local pharmacy, or going to a nearby convenience care clinic. Many employers also offer flu shot clinics in the workplace. Take the time to make your health a priority this fall and get your seasonal flu shot. Remember, the flu shot is the best protection against contracting the flu. For more information, including where to find flu shot clinics near you, visit www.flu.gov. That's www.flu.gov. This message was brought to you by United Healthcare and this station.
When I grow up, I want to be a baseball player. I would be the pitcher because they get to do something all the time.
If your child is sick over and over again, it could be PI, a defect in the immune system that affects millions. Early detection can give children a chance to dream. Jeffrey Modell Foundation, 25 years of helping children reach for their dreams. Visit us at info4pi.org or call 1-866-INFO4PI.
Since we have a lot of Republicans who think you're supposed to roll over, maybe we need to blow the party up and start over.
7,000 high school students drop out every school day. That's one every 26 seconds. So here's a 26-second message of encouragement.
Hi, I'm Stacy. Look, I've been there. It's tough. And I just want to say, if you find yourself feeling negative, use it as motivation. Let it be like the fuel in the fire to keep you going. Because the best is yet to come. Seriously, you're capable of great things. Things you probably haven't even dreamed of yet. So don't quit now. See you at graduation.
Do you have 26 seconds to convince a student to stay at their desk? Now you can share your message of support at boostup.org. We can keep students in school. Visit boostup.org and take the first step. Brought to you by the U.S. Army and the Ad Council.
Welcome to Spooky Southcoast.
Look, I know the supernatural is something that isn't supposed to happen, but it does.
AM 1420 WBSM presents Spooky South Coast with your hosts Tim Weisberg and Matt Costa.
Hello and welcome back to the second hour of Spooky South Coast. I'm Matt Costa and Tim Weisberg is here.
I was going to try it, but I figured
I guess Tim Weisberg is here.
I figured I'd save my voice because I'm going to have to read Mr. Morningstar's bio.
Right.
Matt Moniz, of course, is not with us.
No, he's not.
Dealing with some family stuff.
He is.
Hopefully he'll be back with us next week.
Hopefully.
We're on next week.
No. Well, I think we're gonna try a pre-recorded.
Right, because we're gonna be at
we have a meeting.
A meeting, a very special event.
Right.
A member of the spooky family having a big day.
We were booked for a private party.
We can say that. We can get away with that.
Yep. So that's how that goes.
Well, we are talking about the JFK assassination tonight, and we are thrilled to be joined tonight by our guest, Robert Morningstar. And you might have heard him last night on Coast to Coast. and he's done numerous interviews over the years discussing the JFK assassination and some of his research in that. He's a civilian intelligence analyst and psychotherapist in New York City, a specialist in photo interpretation, analysis, and computer imaging. He graduated from Power Memorial Academy in New York City and was a New York State Regent Scholar, receiving a degree in psychology from Fordham University. And he's also an expert in Chinese language, history, and martial arts. He's also studied the paranormal and UFOs for over 40 years and has published many research articles on the internet exposing government cover-ups and deception in the JFK assassination, and his work is cited in major books on the assassination, including Paris Ramon's The Assassination of America and Conspiracy Science by Professor James Fetzer. He's written extensively to expose NASA's use of disinformation technology in suppressing evidence of extraterrestrial life and exposing the real nature and threat of the UFO phenomenon. He's also currently the associate editor of UFO Digest. Please join us in welcoming to the show Robert Morningstar. Hello, Robert. How are you?
Hello. Thank you very much, and sympathies on your throat.
Thank you.
Appreciate your effort. Thank you very much.
When my voice clears up, I'll re-record that intro.
Oh, that's okay. I think real life is more exciting than anything else.
Absolutely. So I've read your work on the internet for a number of years now, and I've always been fascinated by the fact that you find new and different takes on the assassination. You seem to be able to find new angles that other people are just either overlooking or maybe intentionally ignoring.
Yes, this is true. I was just writing about that. The information I'm going to give you tonight about the smoke and vapor trails on the grassy knoll. What we've all been looking for, everyone's been demanding the smoking gun photograph for years. You know, where's the proof? Well, folks, I have the proof, and I've sent it to WBSM. And what I'm referring to is work I've done over the last 20 years, although I've studied the assassination for 50 years and one day. I can tell you 20 years ago I had an idea that we might be able to find what is popularly called tracers. It's actually a condensation trail, or a vapor trail, as I shorten the term, that's left in the atmosphere under certain conditions by hot bullets traversing humid atmosphere when the air pressure is right and the humidity is right and the angle of the sun is propitious. These will be registered on film. Unfortunately, I'm one of the few people I know who are familiar, except the real shooters, you know, real people who fire rifles. My experience goes back to childhood. And I'll briefly describe that. When I was 3 years old, my grandfather took me out on his land, and for the first time, he was going to show me the use of a rifle and its purpose. I did not know what it was, you know. He took me out and told me to stand in a position, and he moved about 10 feet away, and then he shot an animal. And what I saw as a baby, 3 years old, was I heard a loud sound, and I saw a white stick come out of the rifle and strike the animal and kill it. And that's what I thought rifles did. I thought rifles made a loud sound and a white stick came out and killed the target. And for years, until I grew up, of course, I saw a lot of rifle shooting, and I didn't see that again, of course, because the conditions weren't correct or right. But that said, later on, I was in Army ROTC at Fordham University, and for a brief time, as a member of Army ROTC, I was on the Fordham Army ROTC rifle team. And during those training sessions in which I engaged at that time, I noticed in the firing range, which was at the bottom of the basement of Ben Salem College at Fordham University, as my teammates were firing, I could see a straight line right out of the rifle to the target. Again, the white stick was coming out of the rifle and hitting the target. So this is something, a phenomenon with which I was, you know, very, very familiar. And all of you are familiar with it too, and I will direct you to the greatest compilation of this phenomenon, the condensation trails, and that you will find in World War II films of the Battle of the Philippine Sea, popularly called the Marianas Turkey Shoot. The conditions were perfect that day for this, and you will see the sky crisscross by machine gun fire, aircraft, and Marine, Air Force, Navy. Everything was firing great guns that day, and it's all over the place. So this is not something that has to be proven. It is only something that has to be shown. And fortunately, God blessed me with special eyesight. Not only is my eyesight clear, but my eyesight is very quick. I can see things that happen in the blink of an eye. And while I was seeing the movie JFK in 1992, I saw a vapor trail. In the first showing of the film, it went by, and I thought, did I just see lightning? And then I went home and puzzled about it. And I said, I have to go back and see that film. And the second time I saw it clearly. I actually had found it in a very small print of the Zapruder film that I was studying prior to seeing that movie. And I pointed it out to a friend, and I said, you know, that little thing right there could be it. But it's so small, and this print is so old and grainy that I really wouldn't argue it. I have to get better copies.
Right.
And the copies of the Zapruder film were one of the hardest things to get as late as 1992. My good fortune was that on November 21st, 1991, the CBS show Hard Copy showed one of the best copies of the Zapruder film that I had ever seen, and it was actually a videotape transmission of David Lifton's copy of the Zapruder film, which was a film that was taken from 8mm to 35mm by professional photographers that were working with David Lifton. Lifton worked with Axel Wexler. He was involved in this project as well. So he's a renowned Hollywood cinematographer. So the print was exquisite. And as a result of studying that film, I was able to find not only the vapor trails, but more importantly, the cuts, the splices, the edits, the juxtapositions of frames from one position to the other, the deletion of frames that should have been in sequence.
Oh, wow.
And so that's the nature of my work. And I sent a copy to Tim of the best print that I have of frame Z295 of the Zapruder film, which will prove conclusively that it was impossible for one man to have fired all the rifles that were used that day in Dealey Plaza.
Right, and if you look at this photo, which we will get up with your permission, of course.
I thank you, of course. This is the most important photograph in the entire history of the JFK assassination, and I will explain to you in scientific terms why this exonerates Lee Harvey Oswald as the lone assassin.
Your station for the South.
Go on. Would you describe the picture for the audience?
Well, excuse me, I'm having a little bit of trouble. I saw it earlier on my home computer.
Okay, well, let me describe it. It's a single frame from the sequence after President Kennedy has been shot in the throat and in the back, by the way. The first shot was in the back, between the shoulder blades, and it made the president exclaim, "Oh my God, I've been shot." And when the testimony of Roy Kellerman and William Greer came up before the Warren Commission, they tried to discredit this testimony by, imagine, our inspector and those attorneys tried to discredit the Secret Servicemen who were in the car with President Kennedy, and they tried to tell them that what they heard did not happen. And this was typical of the way the attorneys, the police, the FBI, and others intimidated or tried to confuse and bamboozle witnesses. Whichever worked, they used. And so Kellerman and Greer are testifying before the Warren Commission before the report, and they said that President Kennedy exclaimed, "Oh my God, I've been shot!" And they turned around and they saw the sequence begin. He'd already been shot, and then the throat shot, which was a separate shot from the back shot, ensued. So the argument that Spector and others made to them was, no, it's impossible for you to have heard President Kennedy say anything because the first shot was in the throat and he couldn't have said anything after the throat shot. And they said, no, we heard him say that. And they said, no, it's impossible. He was shot in the throat. They both said, no, we heard him say that. And then arrogantly, Spector says to them, how can you be so sure? And they both said, he said it with a Boston accent. And that ended that discussion.
Wow.
Understand?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So the president had been shot in the back and in the throat. He was struggling and gagging. Jackie was turning toward him. She actually put her arm around him rather lovingly, something that's been deleted in many versions of this Zapruder film. And as Z-295, that frame occurred, a bullet was fired from a very high office building and farther away than the Texas School Book Depository, actually across the street. I can tell you the building. It's called the Criminal Courts Building. And this is the building that houses the Sheriff's Department. Now, this vapor trail, I've made it well known, privately and in the JFK Assassination circles. I've sent it to certain news companies. And over a period of time, certain companies have taken this very seriously, and I want to commend Fox News and Bill Hemmer for having produced the best documentary to date on the actual circumstances of the JFK assassination. And in that documentary, which has been shown and is being shown on Fox News, I direct you to it, hosted by Bill Hemmer, they took this information and put it into a computer. And they found, and they did a wonderful computer rendering of the trajectory of the shot and where it came from. And it came from the County Records Building, which had a clear and open view of the car from every position. The problem with the scenario that they try to pawn on us about the Texas School Book Depository is that from the time that the car turned the corner onto Elm Street, the view of the target, the president, was obstructed by huge oak trees that were planted in front of the Texas School Book Depository and part of the Pergola Park area, the Dealey Plaza area. And so those trees were obstructing the view of any shooter on the 6th floor until the car was well down the street.
Yeah, I've seen that on some of the documentaries. It's definitely true.
Oh, yes. I have a brilliant friend, a fellow JFK researcher who's worked with me for 20 years. His name is Roy Schaefer, and he did a very interesting thing. He rode the limousine that is rented. There's a Lincoln Continental that is rented as the presidential vehicle, so you can ride the route and ride the path. And Roy is a brilliant man, and he took a camera, and he took the camera and he shot the 6th floor window from the turn all the way down the street. And from his position as the victim, the tree was protecting the victim until the car was way down the street. And so what the victim could see of the 6th floor is the same thing that the shooter could see of the victim for that period of time, with the trees between the shooter and the target. So that's one thing that works against that lone gunman theory. The other thing that works against the lone gunman theory is the Alkins photograph, which shows Lee Harvey Oswald standing in the vestibule of the Texas School Book Depository. Many people have tried to debunk that photograph or that interpretation of the photograph by claiming that it was a man named Billy Lovelady who's in the picture. However, that doesn't wash, because Billy Lovelady was wearing a plaid shirt, and the person wearing the shirt being worn by the person standing in the vestibule is actually a solid colored shirt with one more important item. The shirt is missing the top button. And when you see the arrest photo of Lee Harvey Oswald, he's wearing the same shirt, and the top button is missing. So for me, that confirms that Oswald was on the lower floors. He went out, took a look, went back into the lunchroom, and Marion Baker encountered him. That was the only person to rush the Texas School Book Depository was a motorcycle policeman who was pointed up there by someone. And he ran in and met Lee Harvey Oswald on the second floor, having a Coke, walking away from a Coke machine very casually, having had his cheese sandwich for lunch. He was identified by Roy Truly, the manager, as an employee, and then Marion Baker continued his search. However, on the other side of the street, or from the other side of the street, scores of people saw smoke rising from the grassy knoll, and scores, nearly 100 people, ran up there immediately to try to catch the killer, whom they were convinced had shot from the grassy knoll. Now, let's get back to the vapor trails and Z295. This is a unique item because the bullet came in high and at a steep angle. It caught the president on the right side of the head, a small section of his skull. It went in and out and then continued. And you can actually see the bend in the vapor trail in the photograph that I've shown you, I've sent to you. And it's delineated by arrows superimposed in the photograph to make it easy for people to see. Now, I would bolster this interpretation of that photograph with this testimony from Secret Service agent Glenn Bennett before the Warren Commission, who stated that he was in the second car and looking at the president, and he saw the president hit in the back, and then he saw him struggling, and then he said I saw a bullet hit the president high on the right side of the head.
Well,
and that is what you're seeing in that photograph.
And have you ever
Actually, his words were these: I saw a bullet hit the president right side high on the head, on the president's head.
Have you ever released this photo publicly on social media or anything?
Oh, I published it for years. It was on JFKResearch.com for years until that website went down upon the death of Richard De La Rosa.
Because we've got
very
people
dedicated JFK researcher who in fact is the only person that I know who saw the uncut version of the Zapruder film and described exactly what witnesses said happened. The Zapruder film is an optical illusion. It's a consciously engineered mass hallucination. It makes you believe you're seeing things that did not happen. It makes you believe that you see the president's car come around the corner. It makes you believe that the car never stopped. It makes you believe that the car was going about 35 miles an hour when the car never moved faster than 11.5. And that's the Warren Commission statement.
We have a lot of people in the chat room and online who want to see this photo. With your permission, can I tweet it out?
This belongs to the American people.
Okay.
But I would like to say that I would like to thank Zachary Sklar, the screenwriter of the movie JFK, also the publisher of Jim Garrison's book, his original book on the Trail of the Assassins, and Oliver Stone, who gave me permission to use this Cray supercomputer-enhanced version of the Zapruder film to capture this frame and enhance it.
I'm tweeting it out right now, so anybody that's listening, if you follow us on Twitter @SpookySC, or if you follow @WBSM1420, you'll be able to see the photo that we're talking about right now. And really, when you have the access to the type of imaging that you have to be able to have a better view of the Zapruder film, one of the questions that I want to ask you is, I'm sure you've seen the recently released enhanced version of the Zapruder film.
Yes, I remember that. You mean the one that was released around 1997, 98, and was from the National Archives, and they reshot every frame and rebalanced the colors.
And how did that compare with what you were able to see in your recreation and imaging of it?
Well, let me say something about that that enhanced version of the film. What they did in that film is they polished it a little bit. This film has been altered so many times in so many revisions that there are scores of versions of this. And in that one, what they did is they put it in a computer, and what they tried to do but didn't completely obliterate are the splice marks. The splice marks tell the tale. Now, to cover up the doctoring of the Zapruder film, a story was made up that the film was damaged. Okay, and specifically at the part where the presidential limousine goes behind the sign. And I'm going to explain to you the reasons why that particular scene was doctored. When the car really doesn't come around the corner, many years ago, a man named William Cooper has made a statement: if you want to find the killers, don't look at the victim. Okay? So when you see the Zapruder film the next time, don't look at the limousine. Look at the background, look at the foreground, look at the sides, do not look at the limousine. And when you do that, you will see the splice marks going past you.
Huh?
Let me explain the illusion, and let me explain the reality before the illusion. The motorcade had a pilot car ahead of it. That pilot car had a motorcycle escort of 4 motorcycles ahead of it. They were supposed to clear the area, make sure everything was safe and ready for the president's arrival. They rode ahead of the entire motorcade throughout Dallas, but they are never shown in any film of the assassination. Every film of the assassination purports to show the president's limousine as the first car. But about a block ahead of the car was the pilot car with Captain Lawrence of the Dallas Police Department and Secret Service agents that were accompanying him. The 3 motorcycles came ahead, followed by the pilot car, followed by the president's limousine and his motorcycle escort. So as the Zapruder film opens, you first see these motorcycles coming. One goes down Houston Street, and the other 3 turn. As the third motorcycle goes in front of you, and it's centered in the screen, the film is cut, and another motorcycle instantly appears, making you believe that it was the same motorcycle you were looking at. But in that moment, and your eye went from motorcycle to motorcycle, the trick has been played on your peripheral vision. The president's car appears instantly in the middle of Elm Street, riding down steadily in an unbroken motion and straight through the assassination with no stops involved. Okay, let me tell you what's cut out of the Zapruder film. Witnesses who were watching on Elm Street said that when Greer turned the corner of Elm Street, he missed the correct left turn, and the reason is this: the turn at Elm Street from Houston to Elm is not a 90-degree turn; it's a 110-degree turn, much sharper than an ordinary turn.
Right.
And Greer, being unfamiliar with Dallas, came down that street, and his eye spotted a right-angle turn, which was the service road for the Texas School Book Depository. He mistook that for Elm Street. But as he passed the actual Elm Street over his left shoulder at 110 degrees, he quickly cut the wheel of the car, and the right wheel of the car hit the curb, rode up on the curb, fell off the curb, bounced down in the far right lane, necessitating him to get back into the middle lane. Okay, so that little accident, let's call it, is deleted from the Zapruder film. The next thing that is deleted from the Zapruder film is the actual slowing down of the vehicle to a near stop, because Greer, being a well-trained Secret Service agent and a well-maligned, slandered, libeled Secret Service agent who's been charged with shooting the president, totally bogus, a total distraction to make you look away from the actual things that were going on, to see confusion in our perceptions. Greer drew his gun, but he didn't fire. That's removed from the Zapruder film. But Greer actually slowed down and nearly stopped because he saw a throng of people standing on the triple overpass railroad bridge. and knowing that anyone could drop a rock, drop a hand grenade, fire a pistol at the president, he instinctively hit the brake. That's removed from the Zapruder film. Then he crawled up, or crept up toward the sign. When the car got behind the sign, shots rang out. The first shot hit the president between the shoulder blades and a very bony area. One of the most massive bones, the sections of the human body with the massive bones, the vertebra of the spine, the thoracic vertebra, the rib cage, and so on. And then the car, that's when President Kennedy said, "Oh my God, I've been shot." He proceeded a few more feet, and someone in front of the sign fired a pistol with a small caliber bullet into his throat. And at this point, Greer, having turned around, now started to go again, but then he looked back as the president was gagging and struggling and Jackie was attending him. The car rolled on, and at Z295, the bullet, whose vapor trail you see in the photograph that I've released, passed him and went on to Connolly. The car rolled on another second, and at that point, at frame Z313, his head explodes with a sabot shell, an explosive bullet. A millisecond, a half a second to a second later, a second shot from the grassy knoll rang out, and that bullet entered the already open wound and blasted out the back of his head. And that's the actual scenario, and that's the only explanation that makes sense of all the testimonies in Bethesda, in Parkland. And this is testimony. This is a scenario which I presented to Dr. Cyril Wecht in 1999. And I can't tell you how gratified I am to see Dr. Cyril Wecht today on the History Channel or most recently on Fox News with Geraldo Rivera stating precisely that sequence of the shots.
I think people tend to forget, too, Geraldo Rivera was the one that actually showed the Zapruder film to the public for the first time, right?
Yes, but Geraldo Rivera was duped into presenting to the public the version of events that the Warren Commission and their supporters wanted the public to believe. As I said, it is an altered document. I call it a Mickey Mouse document because literally. Now, I'm talking about the original Zapruder film, There are several versions of it. But the Zapruder film that was shown from 1968 to 1996, when this 97, when this computer-enhanced version that you referred to was released, was a very, very different document. And the computerization of it has polished it a little bit, but it's still a bogus instrument. Now, I'll tell you why it had to be doctored. It had to be doctored because the Warren Commission came to its conclusion before looking at the evidence. The magic bullet theory was concocted, and that was the only explanation that was going to come out of that commission. As a result, the intact Zapruder film, which showed what really happened, including the car bumping the curbs, wiggling down, slowing down, speeding up, slowing down again to a full stop, and then racing away, had to be altered to fit the magic bullet theory. So what I've described to you, let's say, 1, the back shot, 2, the pistol shot to the throat, 3, the Z295 shot that grazed his skull, actually gave him a really good knock on the head, but didn't, explode like 313. Then there's the Z313, and then the final shot of that sequence, a half a second to
notify
apart. So you've got 5 shots from the back high, from the back medium, from the street level horizontal into the throat, and then those 3 shots that arrived between Z295 and Z313 and following. Now, here's the proof. Here's the proof of conspiracy. That is a shot that you see in Z295. That is the mortal wound that you see at frame Z313. That's 18 frames. The FBI said the film was shot at 18 frames per second, even though Mr. Zapruder contested that. But if you take that 18 frame per second rate, 1 second of time elapsed between Z295 and Z313. However, the bolt-action rifle reportedly used by Oswald required 2.5 seconds to cock and reload. All right, so let's say he tried to shorten the distance. He had a shell in the chamber. He fired. He had to reload. In reloading, there were 4 actions that he had to do, and I know these actions very well because I've done them myself on a Mannlicher Carcano. Okay, the reloading action is this one. The bolt action has to be lifted up and pulled back. That's 2 actions. Then it has to be pushed forward and cocked down. Okay, that's 4 actions. It's impossible to do those actions in less than 2.5 seconds. And yet, the second bullet that I'm referring to, the death mortal blow at Z313, ensues only 1 second after this bullet passes. You understand? Oh, yeah. People have been asking for science. I'm giving you science.
And you're talking too about that shot being able to be pulled off by somebody who knows what they're doing. And from what we understand, Oswald was no expert marksman.
Oswald was at the lowest level of qualification for in the Marines. His qualification was sharpshooter, and then marksman and expert come above that. But sharpshooter sounds pretty high, but really it's really the lowest scale, just passing in shooting. The tests that were conducted were rigged. You know, the tests that you see, for example, CNN is rehashing the 1972, 73, 74 CBS specials and re-editing it. They've done a good job. They put in some good things like real testimony, the testimonies of Mark Lane, for example, on who was involved, and Jim Garrison. Even though they ridiculed Garrison was on the mark. Clay Shaw would have gone straight to jail had the judge not blocked the proof that he was Clay Bertrand. Clay Shaw had been arrested by the New Orleans police, and when he was booked, they said to him, "Are there any other aliases that you have used?" And he said Clay Bertrand. And then they wrote it down. When Garrison tried to introduce that document, the judge blocked him. And that's why Clay Shaw was not convicted. Clay Shaw has a very interesting background. Captain Clay Shaw was a U.S. Army infantry captain, and his claim to fame in World War II was that he captured Werner von Braun. And he facilitated von Braun's migration to the United States by taking him in, turning him over, acting as an intermediary in the first meetings, and then relaying the word upstairs that von Braun was willing to surrender himself, his scientists, and the cache of documents, blueprints, and plans for the V1, V2, and other exotic weapons that the Germans were working on. So Clay Shaw wound up being the head of Permandex, a part of something called Centro Commerciale Mondiale, the World Trade Center. That was the Italian name of the front company, Permandex. And this company was a CIA front that facilitated operations in Europe and in the United States through the cover of commerce. So that's the story of Clay Shaw and his involvement. He was intimate with David Ferry, and he moved in the homosexual circles of New Orleans, which was a very clandestine thing in those days. I've been speaking about this subject recently, that today we've become more a liberal, advanced, progressive, and homosexuality is not a stigma anymore in our society. but in those days it was, and this is why that was controversial, and J. Edgar Hoover stayed in the closet until 10 years after his death. That's when it was revealed that he too was homosexual with Clyde Tolson, number 2 at the FBI. Be that as it may, let's return to the assassination. I have interviewed the witnesses who were in Dealey Plaza. So I'd like to give you some of their names and some of their positions. There are 2 ladies in the Zapruder film wearing a white raincoat and a white babushka, and she's called Babushka Lady. And then there's a lady in the red raincoat. And it's as the car passes the lady in the red raincoat that this shot was fired at Z295. So if you have the movie JFK, which has the best quality version of the Zapruder film, if you go to the part where the president is passing the lady in the red raincoat, just before her red raincoat passes beyond his head, this is the range in the film where this phenomenon is to be seen. I met Mr. William Newman, and now I'm going to tell you the most important testimony, the most important eyewitness to the JFK assassination, because Mr. William Newman and his wife were the closest people to President Kennedy at the time he was killed, other than the people who were in the car. He was 1 lane of traffic away. He was on the curb with his child and his wife, looking directly at the president, directly in front of him. Mm-hmm. And I saw Mr. Newman on CBS News along with his wife the night it happened. And Mr. Newman said, as the car came down the street, when it came by the sign, he saw the president react and stand up in the car, and he thought the president was going along with a gag or something. Those are his words. I thought the president was going along with a gag or something. And he fell back in the seat. And the car proceeded down the street. He saw the president struggling to breathe, but he's putting his hands in his throat. His wife, Mrs. Newman, whose testimony is in this CNN report that's being shown lately, the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, she makes the gestures. If you pay close attention to what Mrs. Newman says and does in mimicking the president's actions, you will see that the actions that she enacts or reenacts are not seen in the Zapruder film. They've been taken out. And these actions were that he reached up from his abdomen to his throat and then his cheek. He put his hand to his cheek. And Jackie Kennedy stated that she heard these terrible sounds, meaning the gagging sounds of the throat shot. And she turned around, and then she said that he put his hand up to his forehead as if saying, I have a headache. And then she went to comfort him. And shortly thereafter, a few seconds thereafter, his head was blown off. Quite, there's no other word for it. The man's head was blown off.
Well, why don't we take our last break of the program?
Sure.
We come back, we'll talk more with our guest, Robert Morningstar, and if anybody has any questions, you can give us a call, 508-996-0500, 877-996-1420. We'll be back in just a moment with more, discussing the John F. Kennedy assassination with Robert Morningstar here on Spooky South Coast.
Midweek with Mayor Mitchell. Wednesdays at 5 p.m. on AM 1420 and WBSM.com.
Bad credit card debt happens to good people. Credit card companies lure you in with low introductory rates or low minimum payments, and before you know it, you owe thousands of dollars in credit card debt. It has happened to millions of good people just like you. But here's the good news. Thanks to a powerful program now approved, anyone with $2,000 or more in credit card debt can cut their credit card payments up to half and even reduce or eliminate interest charges altogether. That's right. Our nationwide nonprofit program is helping U.S. residents cut their credit card payments. Call 800-837-6089 now. The call and information are free. Credit Card has helped over 500,000 people with their credit card debt, and now we can help you. Call 800-837-6089 to see how this powerful nonprofit program can work for you. Bad credit card debt happens to good people. Get free of credit card debt today. Call 800-837-6089. That's 800-837-6089. Again, 800-837-6089.
Okay, here's a little brain exercise. See if you can remember these numbers. 1-800-916-8317. Do you ever meet someone and 5 minutes later forget their name? Do you lose your keys? Forget birthdays? Can't remember names and dates? Losing your memory can be embarrassing, stressful, and even dangerous. That's why we created Prevagen. Within days, you'll notice significant improvement in your attention, memory, and focus, and avoid the embarrassment of memory problems. Based on Nobel Prize-winning chemistry and clinically shown to improve your memory, Prevagen consists of a unique and safe protein only recently discovered. Researchers worldwide are touting the incredible memory-increasing properties of Prevagen, making it the #1 brain health support supplement in America. Don't let memory problems keep you from living the full life you deserve. Call 800-916-8317 today to try Prevagen absolutely risk-free. Prevagen is clinically shown to improve memory and support a healthier brain, sharper mind, and clearer thinking. So call now at 800-916-8317. That's 800-916-8317. Again, 800-916-8317.
It blew books off shelves from 20 feet away and scared the socks off some poor librarian.
Turn on all your lights, lock the doors, and pull down the shades. Spooky South Coast is back.
This looks extraordinarily bad.
I think I can do this one. Welcome back to Spooky South Coast. Tim Weisberg here, along with the silent assassin Matt Costa. We are discussing the JFK assassination with our guest Robert Morningstar. And if you have any questions for Robert, 508-996-0500, 877-996-1420. We did just have a call coming in, but it dropped off. So hopefully they'll call back in and share their question. But before we let you go, Robert, I do want to ask you about your research with the J.D. Tippit shooting, because that's how I first came across your name in the research, and you call Tippit the Rosetta Stone of the entire assassination.
Oh no, that was a term that was used by Wesley Liebler, one of the Warren Commission. See, the Warren Commission attorneys were forced to go along with the big lie, but honest men, even under duress, wished to tell the truth or leave a hint, and he made this very cryptic statement which said, J.D., the murder of Officer Tippit is the Rosetta Stone of the JFK assassination. I came across that, and that says it in a nutshell. Now, here's the key to it. Officer Tippit was the getaway vehicle of the JFK assassination. And I call it that because, as I've described to you, the president was hit with 5 shots between the shoulder blades, in the throat, grazing off the top of the head, and 2 bullets that went through the head, hit to the head, and 1 going through the hole made by the other. Right? No one could have looked at the body and that brain, what was left of it, and said that one man did all that damage. Not even talking about the damage done to Governor Connolly, which I can expand as well. So they had to have a brain to present to the autopsist that could be argued to have been shot and killed by 1 bullet through the brain. Okay? This is where I broke the case. And I broke the case simply on this logic. A friend of mine said to me, Robert, how was Tippit killed? I said, I read in the New York Times that he was shot in the eye, that he was horribly disfigured, and because of that, no one was allowed to see the body, not even his wife and his family. There was no viewing of the body. It was very quickly buried the next day. Tippit was buried on Saturday. Now there's a legend that all 3 people were buried on Monday. Tippit was buried on Saturday, and films of the funeral show Jack Ruby was there. Jack Ruby was his buddy. Tippit had been involved with organized crime. I know this because the lady in the red raincoat told me that. Jean Hill. I interviewed her in 1994. I showed her a picture of Tippit. She scowled
And I will repeat her words. Yeah, that's the scurv. And we were shocked. My friend said, did she say hung? I said, no, scurv. She said, listen, there's nothing he wouldn't do. He was mean, and he did a lot of work with Ruby. Many of the people who were killed in the aftermath of JFK's assassination in those subsequent 2 years and more, I said to myself, all right, we have all these victims. What were they talking about? What got them killed? And in a large number of cases, the people who were killed were people who knew of the Jack Ruby Tippit connection or the Jack Ruby Oswald connection, because they all knew each other. As a matter of fact, J.D. Tippit and Lee Harvey Oswald had breakfast in the same restaurant 2 days before the assassination. So there was common knowledge, and this had to be controlled. The control apparatus, information control apparatus, started with pool reporting. The JFK assassination changed journalism, photojournalism, news journalism. In the old days, reporters and news companies would vie with each other for the scoop, break the case, be the first one to get the story. The pool reporting, as it was conducted in the Dallas Police Department, successfully filtered all the information, and information that was at variance with the lone gunman scenario or the magic bullet theory, or the idea that only 3 bullets were shot, were eliminated, screened, debunked, and people were intimidated, including the chief deputy sheriff of Dallas. His name was Alan Sweat, and he's referred to in a CIA memo as a difficult person because he was walking around telling the people the truth. And what was the truth? What was his truth? His truth is he heard the shots. He was a block away, and he and Harry Weatherford, another Dallas sheriff's office policeman, ran together, and he said that he heard 7 shots. So the chief deputy sheriff of Dallas heard 7 shots, an experienced shooter, an experienced marksman, and a man who could count. And this had to be controlled, and it says in this memo, called the McCone-Rowley memo, that they had talked to Detective Sweat and told him, you've got to stop telling people this information and going out of the chain of command for disseminating information. Now, let me come up to the most important, most recent.
We only have about 2 minutes left, so.
Okay. Everybody's asked for the smoking gun photograph as the proof. Scores of people saw the smoke rising from the grassy knoll. They saw a flash, and they saw smoke. In the Nix film, which was heavily controlled for years and years and years, so heavily controlled that I did not get a full-frame version of the film until 2 months ago. But with that film, I found the vapor trails coming exactly as people said, coming from the picket fence. So I was able to capture a couple of frames, and I was able to shoot close-ups of the trails, and I've posted them on UFO Digest under a story that says, did JFK deserve to die? I've been leaking information, and I use different vehicles to do it. And this story, a book review of a book called Probable Cause, which deals with the question, a very interesting question, unique book. I've never seen a book that argued the question, did JFK deserve to die? He had broken every rule, every protocol in the book as far as diplomacy, going around the State Department, not having any more confidence in the CIA, acting independently through back channels to communicate with Khrushchev, demanding a total revamping and revision of our policy, our geopolitical policy.
Well,
do you have a family member who's getting old?
That's my computer firing off, so that means we're running out of time.
That's okay. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for joining us.
We're making history tonight, and I'm very proud of WBSM as being the first to release this photo, and to the people of Boston and the people of Massachusetts. I'm here because I care. about your president, your senator, your congressman, your native son. He was like an older brother to me. And just as if someone killed your brother, you would never give up until you catch the culprits. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much,
Rob. Good night.
You as well. Robert Morningstar was our guest, and we'll definitely have him back on again in the future. That does it for this week's show. Until next week, from Matt Costa, from Matt Moniz, I'm Tim Weisberg. We want you all to stay spooktacular. And if you missed any portion of the show, we will have it up on podcast, and we will have the blog post up with all this information. Have a great night and a happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
For local news, talk, and sports, the South Coast turns to AM 1420 WBSM New Bedford and WBSM.com.
From ABC News, I'm Todd Ent.
It will make our partners in the region safer.
Secretary of State John Kerry speaking after a nuclear agreement was reached between 6 world powers and Iran early Sunday morning in Geneva. Iran has agreed to halt progress on its nuclear program, including a plutonium reactor at the Iraq facility. In return, there will be some easing of economic restrictions. President Obama spoke at the White House tonight after the historic deal was reached.
Iran, like any nation, should be able to access peaceful nuclear energy. But because of its record of violating its obligations, Iran must accept strict limitations on its nuclear program that make it impossible to develop a nuclear weapon.
John Kerry.
The next phase, let me be clear, will be even more difficult, and we need to be honest about it. But it will also be even more consequential.
The deal also calls on Iran to neutralize its 20% enriched uranium stockpiles, and this limits Iran's nuclear program for 6 months and then reevaluates. Dangerous winter weather has affected communities from Northern California to Texas. Storm Prediction Center meteorologist Mark Darrow said the worst of the weather is in higher elevations across northern Arizona.
Eventually that area of heavy snow will develop across New Mexico into southern Colorado, and eventually later tonight, several inches perhaps, even spreading out into West Texas.
It's now sweeping through the southwest, bringing freezing rain, snow, and gusty winds. The storm has caused at least 8 deaths. Boeing is alerting airlines about possible engine icing problems on some of its new planes. It's recommending that those jets with specific General Electric engine avoid flying near thunderstorms that might contain ice crystals. Models affected are the 747-8 and the 787. It's expected to be one of the biggest November openings ever. The Hunger Games catching fire, now grossing just over $70 million domestically. This is ABC News.
Are you living with pain, joint pain, headaches, muscle aches, backaches? I was. I'm Barry Yarconi, CEO of Vinaprin. For me, it was pain from a nasty fall, and I wanted safe, fast relief. That's when I discovered the extraordinary pain relief benefits of hops, the same plant used to flavor beer. I was stunned by how fast it worked. So we created all-natural Vinaprin, made with no harmful chemicals and backed by 15 years of research. It works for you in just 1 hour, not days or weeks. Find out how well Vinaprin relieves your pain for free. Call 800-400-3610 in the next 10 minutes for a free sample pack. There are no tricks or gimmicks, no obligation, no automatic shipments. Just $1 covers the postage, and the Vinaprin is free. This is a limited time offer, so call 800-400-3610. That's 800-400-3610. Or visit vinaprin.com today. That's VINOPRIN.com.
The Zumba fitness instructor who ran a prostitution business involving videotaping clients for a partner has been released from jail. We get that story from ABC's Chuck Severson.
Alexis Wright's client list had over 100 names. At her studio in Kennebunk, Maine, she secretly videotaped them so her business partner could watch from his office 100 miles away in real time on a computer. Wright served nearly 6 months of a 10-month sentence for engaging in and promoting prostitution, as well as several welfare and tax-related charges. Her jail term was cut short because of good behavior, and she took part in a work program. Chuck Severson, ABC News.
A plea deal in the case of rice and lace letters to President Obama and others.
Shannon Guest Richardson, the Texas woman accused of mailing rice and laced letters to President Obama